Good afternoon all, and welcome to our Center for Voluntary Sector Leadership webinar. And we are delighted to have you, and we are delighted to have a few presenters who will be introduced as we go along. My job as the Director of the Center for Voluntary Sector Leadership is just to welcome everyone and share some housekeeping sort of arrangements, and then literally I'm going to step back, and Francesca, who will be leading the session on behalf of the Center for Voluntary Sector Leadership, will take over. So welcome, and I'm delighted to be introducing this session, which is part of a research project we have been doing for a couple of years on new motherhoods, exploring the experiences of new mothers with kids under 5 who are trying to return back to employment, particularly those parents who don't have extended family in the UK. And I'm delighted to see the person who actually started the project on board. That's Wenjin. Welcome, Wenjin. Delighted to have you on board. And thank you for supporting us, although you don't have absolutely to. We are trying to keep the things going. So the webinar is being recorded just for everybody's benefit. And obviously, if you don't want to be recorded, you can turn off your camera. We have actually by default turned off the cameras. So you'll be safe if you are just joining us and you don't want to see your images recorded. The chat function, it's available. But ideally, if you are asking questions, please do ask your questions via the question and answer function. And obviously, we keep an eye on the questions, and we will be fielding the questions later. And now, without further ado, I'm going to ask Francesca to take over. You can maybe introduce the presenters just before they start their presentation, in order to avoid, doing introducing everybody, and then over time we will not remember who was introduced and who was not. Over to you, Francesca, and looking forward to the session.
Thank you so much, Fidel, and thank you and welcome everyone today. So I'm Francesca, and I'm going to do the first part of the session. I'm Francesca. I'm a senior lecturer at the Open University. And I'm going to introduce a bit the day of today and one of the research projects. We are going to have several speakers today, and both in terms of research, and I'm going to introduce after my talk each of them before their talk, and in terms of practice. So we are trying to explore what we do at the Open University, but as well at Pregnant and Screwed, and as well what are the kind of services that are available for women, and in particular mothers from ethnic minority background in their workplace. And I will start with sharing the screen. We tried the technology, but hopefully, and everything went smooth, so hopefully we'll continue to be smooth. So let me share my screen, and starting with the first presentation. So I'm very happy, and I will introduce a bit the first research project we are doing at the Open University about new motherhoods and diverse new motherhoods for work inclusion. I'm very happy that today it's here with us Wenjin, that she is the principal investigator with the project, but she is on maternity leave at the moment. So we will continue to work with her when she will be back. And so this project, actually, the soul of this project started with Wenjin when she came back from her first maternity leave, and she contacted me. Now, we work in the same department, and I also have kids that at that moment were under school age, and we started to reflect about our experience of being diverse mothers in the UK, and we started to think that maybe through our skills as a researcher, we could support the life of another ethnic minority mother. And so that was a bit the ethos behind the project. So we started a bit to explore what was in terms of research out there for supporting new mothers, and in particular mothers with kids under school age. And we could see that only 1 in 3 new mothers in the UK stay in full-time employment, that women are less likely to progress at work than their male counterparts, that women report financial losses and disadvantages, and in particular, any minority women live this kind of issues. And mothers from certain cultural background can experience discrimination workplace based on racial stereotypes. At the same time, only few studies focus on the workplace experience of any minority mother. So there is the potential to understand and explore what is the life experience of ethnic minority mothers in the workplace, and in particular, mothers with kids under school age. And so our research objectives were understanding how mothers make sense of their career experience after childbirth, and in particular, how minority ethnic mothers' career experience differ comparing to white British counterparts. And as well, and this is the connection with the Center for Voluntary Sector Leadership, how can communities and policies and non-profit organizations can support the work inclusion of new mothers. So as Fidel was saying, we work on this research project since a couple of years. So Wenjin and myself, we conducted a pilot project between March and May 2023, when we have the chance to interview 29 new mothers from very diverse background. After analyzing, today I will present the preliminary findings on that part of the study. But then Wenjin thought that it was really important to involve community researchers to better understanding any minority mothers in different communities, particularly Milton Keynes. So we started to work with 5 community researchers that have collected 30 semi-structured interviews with mothers coming from very different backgrounds. We have at the same time interviewed 5 policymakers, and we are conducting, thanks to Min, that is working with us as a researcher, and I know that she's on the call, we are collecting interviews with nonprofit organizations. And this is more or less, these interviews were conducted up to May 2024, and in the next couple of months, we are conducting 10 focus groups with mothers. And at the same time, and this is what we struggled the most, we are looking for 20 employers and HR managers to interview. Up to now, we conducted 4 interviews. So main themes from preliminary analysis. So, and these are the 29 interviews we conducted, myself and Wenjin, last year. So most of the mothers, they suggest that the policies in terms of childcare, it really is a barrier in terms of going back to work. So most of the mothers, the salary that they receive doesn't pay off the nursery for the kids, and this is create as well a sort of work exclusion and barriers. It would be quite interesting with the new government in a couple of months and in the next years understand how the policies about the hours really affect or not the inclusion of working mothers. Even more ethnic minority mothers experience. So the problem of childcare and the cost of childcare is across all the mothers. But ethnic minority mothers, some of them experience further barriers. For example, there is a lack of sort of community support that can help ethnic minority mothers to support the need when you have a small kids under 5 and under school age. There are also, from our interviews, there were some highlight of the stereotypes that are used inside employers in relation to ethnic minority mothers. And so the questions about what kind of maternity leave they were taking, if they were taking a maternity leave more aligned to their cultural background or not. So that kind of barriers were highlighted. And it was highlighted as well, the idea of having an imposter syndrome. So the idea of not being enough, neither at work, neither as mother. And this was quite good, quite evident in terms of barriers. And then we discuss a bit the roles of the community, so how the voluntary sector can really support to recreate that network of support that any minority mothers often don't have in the UK. And so we started to explore what kind of services the nonprofit organization can provide to this mother. So what are the next steps? So at the moment, we are finalizing the data collection of the second phase, interviews and the focus groups. If you are interested, or if you think that you would have a contact inside the HR, employers, policymakers, or mothers that you think are really their story and their voice would be important to be included, please let us know. Send myself or Fidel an email. And of course, all the research is confidential and anonymous. We are planning to develop a policy brief to be disseminated to the UK government, so the new UK government, in May 2025, and have as well a face-to-face event for disseminating research. And we will send you the invitation. It will be great if you're interested in the project. And then we will as well finalize academic publications in relation to this work. So I will stop here and I will pass the floor to the second presenter, Keely and Kendal. They are colleagues at the Center for Policing Research and Practice. That they are working on motherhood and return to work in the police sector. I will share their presentation. Kendal, Keely, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi everybody. Firstly, I apologise. I'm actually away at the minute, so it might be a bit noisy. So my lovely co-lead Kendal is going to take the lead of this presentation, but I will be around for questions. But very briefly, my name is Dr. Keely Duddin. I'm a lecturer in the teaching department at the Open University. I'm also a chartered psychologist. But I've spent a number of years working within the policing sector, and became very interested in kind of the experience of motherhood within the context of quite difficult, precarious roles within policing and shift work. And that's where with Kendal, I've joined forces to look at kind of this research within the context within a policing environment. So I will kindly pass on to my co-lead Kendal.
Thanks, Keely. As Keely introduced herself, I'm Kendal. I am currently a lecturer, central academic within the policing department at the Open University. I've got 14 years experience in policing in Merseyside Police, and similar to Keely, because of personal kind of experiences going back after a period of maternity leave, we then came up obviously with this research idea, and then through this research findings, which we'll go through now, there was a number of areas that we thought were really quite concerning, especially around diverse motherhood pathways and how we can help support changes being made within UK policing. Okay, so why is it important? We've got over 50,000 police officers, female police officers within the UK. 40% of new recruits now are female, but we realise that barriers still persist and retention remains a huge issue for policing. In terms of this, I think with retention, we know that forces are very good at seeing that they want to have a diverse workforce in terms of gender and ethnic minority. However, they're not very good at looking into the future and how they can better support people who come into the policing from diverse backgrounds. Evolutionary, a large portion of women will go on to have at least one period of maternity leave during their careers. And within a policing context, it really does offer unique challenges in terms of even the roles. Also, the amount of traumatic events that they're going to deal with, obviously on a day-to-day basis. We believe that police officers are exposed to 400 to 600 traumatic events through their career, compared to around 6 traumatic events for an average worker. Intersectionality within the workplace, especially in policing, it's really overlooked. Some research goes into policing in terms of general findings in America. However, intersectionality is an area that really hasn't been touched on. It's an area that really needs a lot of work as well. We found that barriers are even harder for ethnic minority women facing misogyny, harassment in a male-dominated environment. This in turn leads to self-doubt, overworking, and a lack of relatable leadership. Again, as we spoke before with resignation, this increased resignation is linked to challenges balancing career responsibilities with a job and a lack of visibility for flexible working mothers in senior roles. From the data we collected, these are some of the highlights. We had almost 6,000 participants in total, and from those participants we had over 9,000 free text comments, so we have a really rich data set. 91% of the participants identified as English, Welsh, Scottish, Northern Irish or British, with 7% identifying from another ethnic background, with 2% preferring not to say. 46% of the participants had 2 periods of maternity leave, with another 9% having 3 or more periods of maternity leave. And we have 34% experienced maternity leave in the last 2 years. So we know that these findings are really current as well, with over a third having them in the last 2 years. One thing we also know on the far right of the screen are the reasons why people return back into policing. One of the best figures we have here is that they always plan to, with 64%, and that just shows people who are in policing, they want to be police officers and they want to stay being police officers. So it's a real shame when they can't retain a workforce or better support the mothers who go back to work in different areas. These are some of our findings. From our research, we split it up into 3 areas. We looked at pregnancy experience, maternity leave experience, and returning to work. So these are some of the findings during pregnancy. We found an inconsistent support, lack of risk assessments, and inadequate mental health support. We found that certain demographic factors exacerbated perceptions of organisational support, including those who identify as disabled with less time in service, ethnic minority mothers and police officers. We also found that ethnic minority women reported poorer organisational support from supervisors and colleagues. And we also found that the pre-maternity leave meeting and perceived support during pregnancy were significant predictors of how they felt their mental health was supported. We found importance of organisational support structures, including managerial interactions and colleague relationships for positive mental health experiences. During maternity leave, we found that insufficient communication from supervisors with limited information on entitlements and challenges accessing flexible work arrangements. This led to feelings of disconnection, stress, and anxiety about work arrangements before returning to work. We found that ethnic minority women perceived poorer support again and obstacles into their career advancements with shifts and career aspirations post-leave. We had clear communication with support mechanisms and information provision are crucial for a positive maternity leave experience when they return to work. The findings around return to work after a period of maternity leave, we perceived poor support from supervisors and colleagues alongside obstacles accessing career advancement, experienced a shift in career aspirations post-maternity, and women from an ethnic background reported even poorer support. Charman and colleagues who research into retention, they highlighted a broader context of voluntary resignations within UK policing, showing that women returned to maternity leave often perceive their parental status as just incompatible with the organisation. Postnatal mental health support was linked to supervisor support upon return, with mental health support during pregnancy and information provision around rights. We found that findings underscore the crucial need for organisation initiatives and inclusive work environments to better support returning mothers' professional development and their retention in the organisation, and better support for their postnatal mental health. These were just a few of the recommendations we found. We found that forces should look at flexible working processes. This review will look to reduce stress and anxiety during the maternity leave. Flexibility around their policies, ensuring the policies are flexible, helping supervisors and colleagues to be supportive and be able to access that information during maternity leave and when returned to work. Address maternal biases, protect health and professional opportunities for working mothers, and educate the organisation and supervisors on maternal health and family entitlements. Develop a supportive return process, implement things like toolkits, welfare passports, support networks, and structured kit days, including a better use of phased returns, risk assessments, wellbeing checks, and mentoring and coaching support. As well as the policies, we want the policies to be more inclusive, ensuring policies support working mothers and partners and other parental pathways. And pre-leave meetings, ensuring that valuable pre-leave discussion about support, contact, and communication during the maternity leave. Healthcare relationships, building relationships with healthcare providers for comprehensive support. Monitor initiatives, evaluate the effectiveness of these initiatives, see what works, see what doesn't, see what we need to change in the future. And then obviously look to future research, consider different pathways to parenthood and intersectionality with other demographics. These are some of the quotes we found from our free text responses. All these quotes are from women who identify from a different ethnic background. They're going into pregnancy. Pregnancy-related sickness is treated like a burden or an inability to deal with pregnancy like others. There's a difference between nausea and hyperemesis. On regular occasions, I had comments about my bump as well as laughing and pointing. There were no desk assessments made to accommodate my condition. I was uncomfortable most of the time. I felt my police organisation significantly failed me during my pregnancy and my maternity leave. My mental health was significantly impaired as a result of my line manager's bullying, and I felt isolated and not supported. And there's a real lack of support when returning to work after maternity leave. You're expected to return to work and work like you have no children, and there's no consideration for career progression being a working mum. You're expected to work and go through promotion, have to either work shifts or do not bother your home life, pay extreme cost of childcare, or suffer financially by going part-time. This is a really important part for us, the future directions for our research. Like I said, we set off really wanting to have a general picture of the maternity provisions in policing at the moment, but we found some really interesting avenues and some really worthwhile avenues that we want to explore further. We want to look at organisational culture and structural factors. We want to look at intersectionality and support perception. And we want to look at maternity bias and stigmatisation. And we want to have also look at longitudinal studies for career trajectories. These are just a few of the outputs we've delivered on. We've delivered on a number of evidence cafes within police forces. We've also developed a toolkit in relation to Keely's developed this with Manchester Met University. We have also got our report up and running now. We obviously don't have time to go through all this, we just have the 10 minutes, but we do have our contact details at the end of this, which we're happy to share our report with anyone who needs it. And if you want our contact details as well, we're more than happy to share and talk further.
Thank you so much, Kendal and Keely.
Francesca.
And I think it's great. And I think that there are a lot of synergies among the two projects. And for everybody, we will share all the presentation and the recording. So all our contacts will be there. So please feel free to contact all of us as well. We will share as well all the resources that we have available, or the link to the resources. So the next presenter is Osha Daley. She's manager Pregnant and Screwed, and we started to talk together at the beginning with Wenjin as well at the beginning of the research. So we are very happy that our collaboration started, and as well through our this webinar is continuing. So Osha, I will share your presentation.
Thank you.
And the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I might need you to support me with the slides if that's okay, because I can't.
Yes, sounds good. Yeah.
Hi everyone. So my name's Osha. I am part of the support services team, and I'm also the EDI manager at Pregnant and Screwed. I've been with Pregnant and Screwed for about 3 years. Prior to that, I worked in early years recruitment within nursery settings, and in a past life, I was a midwife as well. So I feel all of my experience has kind of culminated to this point. Yeah, and that's me. Next slide, please. I'm just going to show everyone a short video of an overview of the work that we do at Pregnant and Screwed.
Now then, children, are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin. Once upon a time, there was a talented and ambitious woman who had spent years working so very, very hard to achieve all of her career dreams. Until one day she met a handsome prince, and they decided they would like to start a family. She believed they would live happily ever after, with both of them able to achieve their dreams whilst giving their children all the love and care that they could muster. But when the woman became a mummy, she quickly realised that the whole system was set up to totally screw her.
In the 21st century, women are still being discriminated against simply for becoming pregnant.
Up to 1 in 10 women are finding no option but to leave work.
A survey by Pregnant Then Screwed shows that 71% of women trying to return to work cannot because of childcare.
They demoted me when I came back from maternity. I've been well and truly screwed.
There can be no shying away from this issue.
So can the Minister set out exactly what he's going to do to protect and defend those women from redundancy and discrimination in the workplace?
We are hearing from frantic mothers who are completely burnt out and their mental health is rapidly deteriorating.
And that, children, is why us mothers have had enough.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I think we're really well known for our campaigning work, and we have had some really big events like March of the Mummies in 2022, where 15,000 parents across the UK marched for reforms to childcare, flexible working and parental leave reform. So I think I am here to talk about the support services, which is like the lesser known arm of Pregnant Then Screwed. So in 2023, we provided tailored support to over 83,000 parents. I'm going to talk further into the different ways that we supported parents, and we secured 1.4 million in legal settlements for women who experience discrimination in the workplace. Last year, we held regular focus groups with mothers who are disproportionately affected by maternity and pregnancy discrimination, including global majority parents or parents from minority ethnic groups. And we're actually continuing to do this work this year as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. So probably our busiest support service is our HR advice service. This is run by over 100 HR volunteers who are either senior HR volunteers, HR managers and directors. They are all qualified and have over 5 years experience. And there are 2 options with our HR advice service. So you can either call and get through to our advice line, or you can email us for advice as well. And there are no limits on how many times that service can be used. The main things that we offer advice on, I was having a look through our call log to see what the main themes were, and the main themes seem to be flexible working, maternity, parental and adoption leave, redundancy, unfair treatment or discrimination, and I've kind of explained what that falls under, pay and holiday, and health and safety in the workplace. I think health and safety in the workplace was particularly prevalent during the lockdowns and during the COVID pandemic. Next slide, please. Thank you. And we also support people who are taking legal action against their employers. So we do this in 2 ways. There are people who would like peer-to-peer support. So they buddy up with somebody who has experienced an employment tribunal themselves, and they can offer peer-to-peer mentoring, emotional support. They can support with reading over case files and things like that, but this is not legal advice and they are not legal professionals. And then we also do offer legal support. We work with 2 legal partners, Primus Law and Thrive Law, who offer pro bono free legal advice to anyone who has come through our advice line and needs additional legal support. They can then go on to instruct if they wish as well, and both of these law firms either offer a no-win, no-fee arrangement, or they have like reduced rates for people that come through Pregnant Then Screwed who are experiencing maternity or pregnancy discrimination at work. Next slide, please. There are also other advice services that we offer, or other partnerships that we have to support parents who are facing discrimination in the workplace or need advice. We have online advice resources. They were created with the law students and the legal team at the University of Chester, who created these resources for us that are free to download on our website. We also do Instagram live clinics as well with our partnership with Working Families, and their legal team offer legal advice via that medium. We have a mental health support line, which is through our partnership with Mind. So when people call the HR advice line, they also have an option to press 2, which will take them through to Mind, and they can speak to a healthcare professional, a mental health first aider, about anything that they're experiencing. And we also work with Valor. Valor are an online platform who support people who are self-representing. So they will have pre-written documents, letters and things that people can have access to if they are self-representing for an employment tribunal. And then finally, we have the coaching clinic, and the coaching clinic is to support women who need career coaching or would like extra support once they have become parents and feel that they the workplace is a very different place after you become a parent. And they can work with Victoria, who works with us every Tuesday and offers free coaching sessions. Next slide, please. Thank you. These are some of the quotes that we've had from people who have accessed our HR advice line. These were taken from last year. And I think one of the key things about the work that we do is we understand that there is, whilst our support services are for everybody, there is a particular impact on those who have intersecting experiences of parenthood as well. And that's kind of an ongoing work that we're doing at the moment as part of my role as the EDI manager here. But yeah, that's kind of everything that we do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Osha. And I see that there is a hands raised, so we will collect the question if possible at the end of the last presentation. But I think we will have like around 15-20 minutes for questions. So please put the questions for Osha on the chat or in the question and answer, or please feel free to raise your hands at the end of the next presentation. So next presentation is a colleague at the Open University, Deborah Wood, and she teaches in relation to employment and discrimination law. So she's going to introduce what are the different services that are available for mothers that have difficult work experience. So I will share, and Deborah.
Hi.
Hello, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Francesca. And hi, everybody. So as Francesca said, I'm one of the colleagues at the Open University, and I teach in the Faculty of Business and Law, and employment law is one of my areas of research interest as well. So I mean, there's not too much I can add to the last presentation, which was excellent, a very niche specific charity there that works with mothers and discrimination. But in this presentation today, I just wanted to introduce other support services as well, and because we all know that at the moment the not-for-profit sector is picking up so many issues, and the more support we can get in that environment, I think, out there for people, the better. In my sort of spare time, I volunteer as well at an organisation called Support Through Court. So I support people who are not legally represented in the civil legal system as well. So as well as sort of the academic background, I've got that interest as well today. So thank you for listening. Can you flick the slides, Francesca? I can't seem to. Thank you. So I won't obviously go into discrimination in detail, but just to say that this sort of overview of support services today is really targeted towards discrimination and support for mothers who are facing discrimination in the workplace and the protection under the Equality Act. But a lot of the support services would also be applicable if you're struggling with another issue in the workplace, for example, a dismissal or a health and safety issue. So the focus is on discrimination due to the nature of the presentation, but if there's other employment issues as well, most of the support services that I mentioned would be appropriate. So obviously under the Equality Act, well not obviously, but under the Equality Act, we are protected for a number of different reasons in a number of different settings. And the employment setting is the one we're focusing on today. And one of the protected characteristics is being pregnant or being on maternity leave, being discriminated on the grounds of sex, being discriminated against on the grounds of race, and a number of other protected characteristics. So a number of these could apply to a new mother or a mother in the workplace, and some characteristics that we might not immediately think about, but disability, for example, there is protection from discrimination on the grounds of disability by association. So, for example, if you cared for a child with a disability and were discriminated against on that basis. So, for example, if you requested flexible working to look after that child. Types of discrimination in the workplace can be direct discrimination, which might be the most obvious to us, where for example, if I wasn't selected for a job just on the grounds of the fact that I'm a woman or I am pregnant, that would be direct discrimination. And then we've got the discrimination that can sometimes be a little bit more subtle that was mentioned in the police presentation, indirect, where there might be a policy that on the face of it applies to everybody and looks neutral, but actually it is going to indirectly impact on certain groups with protected characteristics more. So for example, a requirement to work shift work or certain hours or be of a certain height, or all sorts of things that could indirectly discriminate against us. Then we've got harassment, where linked to somebody's protected characteristics or a number of protected characteristics, an individual is treated in a way which doesn't respect their dignity, they are bullied, they are harassed, they have unwanted treatment that affects them in the workplace. And then we've got victimization, where an individual is treated unfairly because they have raised a complaint, perhaps of discrimination or harassment. So there's far more complexity to this, but it's just to highlight sort of that discrimination doesn't always have to be direct. It can take more subtle formats. Thank you, Francesca. So discrimination in the workplace as well can take place at a number of different stages in your in a work journey. It can start with the recruitment of you into a place of employment. It can then be the terms and conditions you're offered in your contract, the pay and benefits that you might get, the opportunities for promotion or opportunities for training or opportunities for maybe transfer to another office. All of these stages in your employment journey can be affected by discrimination in the workplace. And ultimately, you might be dismissed for a reason that is discriminatory, or you might feel that you have no other option in that workplace but to resign because of the way you've been treated. And maybe that way you've been treated might be due to harassment or, again, discrimination in the workplace. So discrimination can take place sort of across the work journey. Thank you, Francesca. So what can you do, or what can a individual do who you might be supporting through a difficult time in the workplace. So if an individual feels that they've been discriminated against, and like I said, I'm focusing on discrimination, but it could be another issue. For example, if an individual feels there is a health and safety issue, then initially the first thing that we would advise is that that individual tries to speak informally to their line manager to resolve that. And that might be enough at first. Perhaps something's been done inadvertently and it can be resolved informally, things can be changed, and it can get better. And that is obviously going to be the least contentious way to resolve an issue and to ensure that the employment sort of relationship is protected. However, things don't always go that smoothly, do they? And an employer might not be recognizing that they are treating somebody in an unfair way, or your line manager might not be somebody that you can resolve things with. So none of what I'm saying today is legal advice at all. I think the main message for today is to say that there are a lot of support services out there. And I think that the sooner that an individual, if it's not going to be something that's easily resolved, get support from an independent body as soon as you can. Or if you're supporting somebody with a workplace issue, advise them to get support. And that will be the focus of the presentation. Just to briefly go on, if the process would be, after trying to resolve it informally, would be then raising the issue more formally through the internal grievance procedure. So each employer should maybe on their, well, it should be on their HR website, intranet, within the contract of employment, employer handbook, go and look there and see what is the internal grievance procedure for if I've got an issue. What do I need to follow? What process? And it will often involve things like putting things in writing, attending a meeting, getting the chance to put your views across, getting a chance for an appeal, being allowed to take somebody along with you to that meeting. So that should be a formal process. It's often guided by a process determined by ACAS. If that doesn't resolve the issue through internal processes, then it's the time to try and bring somebody else in. And that might be through a less formal route, such as alternative dispute resolution, where maybe a workplace mediator can help you to resolve the issue. Or ultimately, as was mentioned in the last presentation with Pregnant and Screwed, it might involve a legal claim to an employment tribunal. So I know I've not got too long, so I will try and keep this short. So if you are a woman who feels that they've been discriminated against, then there are a number of avenues you might want to turn to try and get that support from an independent body at an early stage. Firstly, are you a member of a trade union? And that might not always be the case. But firstly, check. If you're a member of a trade union, contact your local representative or check the website for contact details and get in touch with them. That would be a first stage. You might get some funded legal advice through that. You would get the trade union support. They might be able to attend meetings with you, etc. So that's a first sensible step. The second, which is crucial, is ACAS. ACAS is the Advisory, Conciliation and Arbitration Service. If you bring a claim to an employment tribunal, that does become a very formal part of the process. However, at a very early stage, you can contact them. They've got a free employer and employee helpline. So just usual call charges will apply, where you can give them a ring in confidence and discuss the issue with you. They will be able to give you a good idea of what the law says and how it might apply to your individual circumstances. And it's important to note that a lot of these services also offer free interpreted services as well. So if you're dealing perhaps with a woman who has not got English as a first language, there are interpreted services there as well to try and provide that seamless support. Okay, the next slide. Thank you. Citizens Advice are always an organisation and that you can consider contacting. They have local centres in different towns, but also they've got a national helpline. And the other thing that Citizens Advice do is, because they don't, and I don't mean that, they don't just provide, so they're not a specialist as Pregnant and Screwed, which will be far more specialist service. However, they can sometimes look at other issues as well that might be helpful for somebody you're supporting or yourself, such as debt management, things that might be related to that difficult employment situation. There is also the Equality Advisory Support Service, which provides free advice. It isn't legal advice again, but it can provide you with information on what is a protected characteristic, on what type of discrimination you might be facing. And then they can also help you to come up with an action plan about how you can resolve that issue outside of the formal court or tribunal process, because formal court and tribunals can be quite stressful for individuals. So if we can resolve it outside that system, that would be an initial thing to think about. And then there's also another charity called Working Families, which is a UK national charity. And there again, that covers more specialist advice on employment rights for parents and carers. So pregnancy, maternity leave rights and discrimination. All of these, oops, sorry, I've got a horrible warning saying my computer's going to reboot, but fingers crossed. All of these, I've put in links on the slides at the end. I put links to all of the individual phone numbers and websites. So these will be shared with you as well. So you've got those links there. This is just an overview. Thank you, Francesca. If you are going through this route or you're supporting somebody, it's a good idea to write things down. What dates did certain things happen? It's easier when you're dealing with a support service because you might have quite a short time and you want to make the most of it, to have key things written down, key dates, key documents with you, so that you're all prepared for that meeting, or the individual you're supporting is prepared. Just to point out, and like I say, I'm not giving legal advice today, but just to point out that through Equality and Employment Tribunal, for most claims, you have quite a short window to bring a claim to the Employment Tribunal. It's 3 months minus 1 day, for example, from the discriminatory incident. So I can't stress enough that getting early advice from one of those support services, or a few of them, is incredibly important. And contacting ACAS for early advice. And also, if you're making a claim, you need to inform ACAS, because as I said earlier, they then offer a formal part of the tribunal process, pre-tribunal process, which is they offer a free conciliation service, again, to try and resolve that case out of a formal tribunal setting. But these time limits are quite strict in employment law, so it's good to get advice as soon as possible when you think something perhaps doesn't feel right, or you want to just discuss your case with somebody. And I think that we might and the other thing is, if you are going to an employment tribunal, it's always advisable to get legal advice. And in the last presentation, they said that there were a few law firms which were doing pro bono work, which is fantastic. So that might be avenues like that. Trade union, again, you might have some legal support. Home insurance policies often offer legal support as well. And then there's other charities like Rights of Women. Some women might also be eligible for legal aid for discrimination cases, depending on their financial circumstances. And there is also some university law clinics that might be able to help, as well as the paid route of going down the solicitor route. And links to all of these legal advice services are provided at the end of the presentation. And these are the resources now. So I try to just link to each resource in those final few slides. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Deborah.
Thank you.
It was great. And yeah, as we were saying, we will share all the slides and the recording, so you will have access to the different links.
That would be really helpful for all those resources. Thank you.
And I will stop sharing so we can start. We have around 15 minutes for questions and answers.
Yeah, Francesca, so we have a few questions in the Q&A, and I'm wondering, Sam, if it will be possible to allow people to ask the questions, so it will be more interactive. We don't have too many people here, so
no, that would be great. So
so if someone could just raise their hand, then I'll make sure that I give them access, turn on the microphone.
Yeah. So thank you. So all those people who send their questions, I would suggest they start, and then we can, if we have spare time, we can go to those people who have not asked questions. Claire, over to you.
Oh, thank you. I'm unmuted now. Yeah, just quickly, I hope everyone can hear me okay. Thank you so much for all the presentations. They're all fantastic. I've noticed that the focus with a lot of the research and the support groups and services tends to be on mums with kids below school age, which obviously makes a certain amount of sense. I can see why. The thing is, my daughter is about to turn 13, but she's very severely autistic. But I have this experience of being a mum of a disabled child. The fact that she's in full-time school doesn't mean that her needs have become less complex. You've talked a lot about intersectionality and the different groups. My colleague Mel Green is in the room with us at the moment as well. She and I are currently writing a book about the experience of Black mothers raising autistic children in the UK. So this is sort of a two-pronged thing. One is just to advertise our services and let you know that if you'd be interested in sort of sharing ideas and research, it'd be wonderful to talk to all of you. And then, yeah, just the follow-up question about where are those support services for mums who have kids in full-time education, but those kids still have very complex needs that aren't necessarily met in traditional ways.
I would like to start. I mean, I can reply to the part about research, but maybe I'm wondering if Osha, Deborah, and I think myself and Kendal could address the part about research, and I'm wondering if Osha and Deborah would like to address the part about services. Okay. So considering our research, and Wenjin can correct me. I mean, we started with kids under 5, a bit because of personal stories, and a bit because our research was related to discrimination for new mothers, but we are thinking to increase the type of research and the complexity, and as well the different contexts. So try to look for funding that can be helpful to study different contents, so different countries, and learn from different countries, but as well expand the different micro contexts, so the mothers that live different stories. So it would be great to potentially collaborate together, Claire, for the next step of research.
Yeah, and do you want me to? All of the support resources that were on the my presentation would be applicable to women of whatever state, and I completely understand your point on that. So I am the mother of a 11-year-old child who probably needs more support now. Unfortunately, she's got severe obsessive compulsive disorder, and that raises a lot of difficult issues for a working mum with hospital appointments and just general. So I completely understand that point. In terms of discrimination, if that was discrimination on the grounds of sex or on the fact that you've got a disabled child, then all of the resources that I shared in that presentation earlier would still be applicable. There's no sort of limits there to say it's just for new mother.
That's brilliant, thank you. It's reassuring to hear that.
Hi Claire, thanks for asking the question. I completely understand that it seems that all of our work is kind of geared to people with small babies or who have just had children, but we are and have been for the last 2 years working with parent groups who have additional caring responsibilities, whether that be a young child or an older child. And we've been working with an organisation called Born at the Right Time. Part of the project is to start a campaign around exactly this. So I'm definitely going to be getting in touch with you. I've seen you've put your email address there, because this is something that we are actively working on at the moment. In terms of our support services as well, the same applies, as Deborah said. That is something that we would be able to advise on as well.
That's awesome, thank you, Osha. I really look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
So we have another hand raised, Christina. maybe was like.
Brilliant. Sorry,
Oh,
no, I'm here.
yeah.
It just took a minute for the mic to click over, which is brilliant. So thank you for doing that. My question, like I sort of, if I could very quickly caveat this with, I don't have children, and I'm quite happily child-free. So, and this is kind of coming from, this is a question that I'm worried is going to sound whatabouty. But within that, is there any research into kind of parental flexibility and for men? And I was so interested in that policing thing. So with the predominantly male workforce in police, is there kind of support or in research about what sort of support they get, what flexibility they get? Because they do seem to me to be so interlinked. And if you have good parental leave and provision and flexibility for men as well, all that burden doesn't fall on the women, and children got to get born, right? So someone's got to look after them. And is that a what about question, or is there something in that? Is that something that can be looked at? Or thank you very much.
It's definitely something that can be looked at. I think what we realised, as Keely's kind of alluded to, when we put this research together, we weren't sure whether this was just going to be an issue that was quite localised, or it was just mine and Keely's issue, return to work, that we'd had a bad experience. And obviously the numbers that we got of people responding just meant that actually it's really widespread. So whilst our initial research was quite targeted towards just policing, quite generalised, what's come out of the findings is that, gosh, we need to have a look at so many more parental pathways, including fathers, including adoption, IVF journeys. It's just come out. We've just got a lot of research that we want to do in the future. So fatherhood's definitely something we want to look into. It's not something that's looked into very much. There's a great kind of, not really an official researcher, but a brilliant person called Scott Mayer, who runs, I did get his details up before I saw your question. So he runs he's the director of Fatherhood Solutions, and he looks at post-traumatic stress within fathers after birth, through pregnancy, through parenting, and how they adapt to the workplace. So I would love to be able to research with him in the future as well. So it's definitely an area to look into. And I think the other part of your question regarding, what was the last part of your question? Sorry.
I think just sort of the point that if men wanted it, they'd probably get it. Yeah, I don't think they would be having these issues if it was something they actually wanted to have. So
I think we found that when women come back into the workplace after having babies, they're already extremely busy, and a lot of headspace is taken up already trying to work out childcare and flexible working. So to come in and then all of a sudden kind of raise their hand, put a grievance in, or to kind of say, right, I'm going to do a research project to change this, sometimes comes later on. So yes, that's why there's obviously not as much research within this area, I think, especially with fathers. There was a really good stat that probably sums up your point quite well, that they interviewed superintendents, so which is kind of a high-ranking officer within the policing system, and 42.6% of female superintendents said that it's their sole responsibility to organise their childcare arrangements, compared to 1% of male officers at the same level, which kind of just shows exactly why there aren't very many women who are within that rank or move further. And you also find that women who are of a superintendent or higher rank will have had their children maybe 10, 15 years plus. So then they also kind of have almost forgotten that experience, or kind of think, you know what, it doesn't happen anymore. I'm quite happy that that's, that was 10, 15 years ago, things have moved on, and we found that things haven't really moved on, and this just highlights it. If Keely, if I've what else to say on that.
No, absolutely. Sorry if this is noisy. Just to add, I think Christina, absolutely, this is not a female issue. It definitely fathers need to be a part of this conversation. I think still within policing, because it's been a very masculine culture, the stigma for fathers potentially is there as well. So I think when we've been doing some evidence cafes with police forces, men don't feel comfortable asking themselves either to have parental leave, or the policies are still quite restrictive with how much leave they can take. So it's absolutely there with something we want to look at in the future. So yeah, thank you for those in that.
And I think we have time for the last question. Mina?
Yeah, hi, you can hear me, right? Yeah, thanks for your talk, all fascinating. And I have a quick question for Osha. It's great to see your organization provide lots of support like coaching and legal support. I'm wondering, it's all free to the people who need it, or it's just like some legal advice only have 30 minutes appointment?
So I saw your question, so I've written down some responses actually. So it's a mixture really. So Vala, the online platform that support people who are self-representing during an employment tribunal. That platform is completely free to use, and you can put all your evidence in there, you can create a timeline, you can do lots of different things on that platform. That's completely free. There is a paid version of that platform, which I think is a pay-as-you-go option, and that option provides you with like more tailored legal support, like online legal support, with your letter writing and your supporting evidence. But the platform is free to use. And then with the coaching, there is one session that you can have for free, and then any sessions that you wanted beyond that would be paid. But there is an amazing organisation that I forgot to mention actually called Mentor Mums, and they support any mums who are returning to work, and they match you up with someone who works in your sector, and that's a free they're amazing. It's completely free to have a mentor in your sector who can career coach you and support you through your return to work. And then the other question I think was around settlements. Is that right?
Yeah, legal settlement and what it's for.
Yeah, so it's a real mixture in terms of what that 1.4 million was last year. One of the probably well-known cases was a person called Donna Patterson, who took Morrison's to tribunal for unfair treatment in the workplace. She was working part-time, they were asking her to work full-time. So that's a case that you could look up, and that was actually through our mentor program. 2 of our mentors supported Donna through her employment tribunal, but we also support people like through the legal partners as well. So it's a combination of the 2 things. I hope that answers your question.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much.
That's okay.
So I think that we are at the end of the session. So thank you so much to all the speakers for today. And you have in a chat an evaluation feedback form that Sam, thank you Sam for putting it in the chat. So please feel free to complete the form. And we are going to share the recording and all the slides in the next days. But if you want to have the presentation sooner, or if you want to speak with some of us, please send us an email and we can respond to your question or direct you to the best person to respond to any of your questions. Thank you so much for coming today, and we are looking forward to hear from you in future events.